Welcome to the Patterson Foundation's Nonprofit Thriveability Podcast. I'm your host, Reed Corley, podcast producer and consultant for the Patterson Foundation. The Patterson Foundation's Nonprofit Thriveability Initiative shares opportunities for organizations to strengthen their mission impact by embracing a thrivable operating model. And this week, we are speaking about fueling dynamic fundraising. It's an opportunity for nonprofits in our region to learn and implement research-backed fundraising principles and techniques. Organizations that participate in fueling dynamic fundraising strengthen their fundraising capability through a multi-day in-person course designed and presented in partnership with the Fundraising School at the Indiana University Lilly Family School of Philanthropy. This week, we're speaking with Dave Abderhalden, Board President and Executive Director of Charlotte Harbor Environmental Center. Dave recently completed his training with Fueling Dynamic Fundraising, and in this episode, we talk about his experience with FDF, what he learned, what he's implemented since being part of FDF, his key takeaways from the program, what he gained from working with 40 plus other organizations on those 4 days, and how he felt about fundraising before and after participating in FDF. Plus, he shares a couple funny stories throughout the interview. So please, without further ado, welcome Dave Abderhalden. Dave, thank you so much for joining us today. If you would, please just start us out by telling us about yourself and your organization.
Well, good morning, and thank you for this opportunity, Reed. My name is Dave Abderhalden. I am the board president and I guess it's official now. I am the executive director of the Charlotte Harbor Environmental Center. We are a nonprofit. We were established in 1987 by a wonderful gentleman, Charles Caniff, who didn't really like what was going on environmentally wise here in Charlotte County. He envisioned too much development and the loss of what Southwest Florida truly was from the environmental side. So he worked with the state, the county, the school board, the Peace River Audubon Society, and he helped establish the organization. And that, as I said, we were established in 1987. So we're celebrating our 38th year. What's our core values? Basically, we really encourage environmental education, recreation, and conservation efforts throughout the Charlotte Harbor area, our community, and beyond. We do that through special education programs. We are lucky enough through grants through wonderful Charlotte County. We provide programs for approximately 3,000 students in public schools, from wading trips to hikes to boat trips on Charlotte Harbor. They get to experience the unique ecosystems that we all get to live in and sometimes take for granted. So along with that, we do film series, lectures, and we do a lot of community outreach programs that we're very, very proud of. We also have a sister facility. We actually have two facilities, one here in Punta Gorda. It's called the Alligator Creek. We're on part of the Charlotte Harbor Preserve State Park, which is 46,000 acres. It's kind of big. Yeah, 46,000. And our other location is over in Inglewood, right across the street from Lemon Bay High School, wonderful facility. And it's in a county park, and that's called Cedar Point Environmental Park. And we staff that with an environmental center there and put programs on there. So we're in Punta Gorda, we're in Inglewood. So we have Charlotte County pretty much covered, but we also love to go into Sarasota County, down to Lee, into DeSoto. We love this area.
Wow. I mean, y'all are spread far and wide. You've been around this is your 38th year. That is awesome. So how long were you on the board before you picked up this role as executive director?
Basically, I retired and I said, well, what do I want to do in retirement? So I always wanted to be a docent or docent, have correct French. I didn't know what it meant, but I wanted to do that. So I had friends that were living here, and they kind of hooked me up with the Charlotte Harbor Environmental Center, where I wanted to, lead hikes into the wonderful environment around us. And our CEO at the time said, well, I really need a board member. I need you to be on the board. And I'm like, I don't want to be on the board. I just want to lead hikes. So one thing led to another, and I helped with some projects, and I became a member of the board. From that, I became secretary, vice president, now president. And during that time, which was 3 or 4 years, our past CEO took another position. And I tell this story kind of jokingly. We called a meeting of the board to decide, what road we wanted to take. And I guess I had too much Gatorade that day, so I had excused myself to use the restroom. And when I came back, I was interim CEO. It's kind of a true story with some embellishment on my part, which I tend to always do. But I stepped in June of last year and did it until January. And then the board decided, well, we are going to offer you the position. So I became the executive director in January last year. So
sounds like you do have such a passion for the mission, which is so important for any board member. And then for you to take or be forced into that position of executive director and take it graciously coming out of retirement to do that. So shout out to you. I know that that's super helpful for your organization. We are here today to talk to you about fueling dynamic fundraising. And you recently went through that program, I believe. So would you please describe fueling dynamic fundraising to an organization who is interested in the program, or even people who don't know what fueling dynamic fundraising is?
Well, in one word, short answer would be excellent. I saw where the Patterson Foundation, which is, I could do a whole podcast about what great work they do. They're just an amazing organization. They put it out there that this fundraising class was going to be offered by them, which I learned it was, and it's a long name, and I'm going to cheat and look at my notes, that it's University of Indiana Lilly Family School of Philanthropy. So, and they've been around for many, many years. Fundraising, it's kind of a dirty word to a lot of people. It's scary. It was scary to me. I mean, I came from the public sector. If I tell the story that I was, project manager. If I was working on a project and I was running short of funds, I'd pick up the phone. I'd call our city manager and say, hey, we have some changes, whatever. I need some money. He would say, how much? I'd say 50,000. And he would say, I just transferred 100,000. That was just the way it was. And I jokingly tell the story. I was working out here, cutting trails, painting, whatever. And I thought, I'm a little thirsty. It'd be nice to, have a nice Coke Zero. And I was told, well, I think I saw a quarter out in the parking lot. You could go try to find it. So it was a whole different mindset. And basically what the program did, the Lilly Family School of Philanthropy does, the principles and techniques of fundraising, there's so much to learn, but they show you the right way, how to do it correctly, efficiently. And I cannot speak of the program, how good it was. It's mind-numbing. There's so much information that was provided, but we were blessed with just great instructors, and it's just a fantastic program. So again, thank you to the Patterson Foundation that allowed me to do that. I'm a member of cohort number 4. Yeah, woo-woo, cohort 4. But it's an honor. It's an honor, and it's a privilege to be part of this. And so any organization that has the opportunity to do this, I would say go into it, open mind, open arms, and you will come out a better organization because of it.
So can you describe a little bit more in detail what this is? Is it in person? It's group setting. You said you're part of cohort 4. So how many other organizations were involved? Is it a lecture style work groups? Would you just 1 day long, multi-day? Just talk a little bit more in detail about the actual program itself.
Okay. As I said, I filled out an application and was, lucky enough to get chosen. There were 40 organizations, I think, in our cohort. It was put in the Sarasota area at the Carlisle Wonderful Resort. Amazing food. Sorry, shout out to the food at the Carlisle. It's amazing. But it was, some organizations came with, one person. Some people came with 2, depending on what they were doing. And it was, what made it really interesting was it was the full gambit of nonprofits. It was from us environmental. A friend of mine went there from the Peace River Wildlife Center, who I knew, which was, kind of took the edge off having a friend to go in with. But we met so many wonderful people and their missions that they want and their goals and desires and how they do things. And it was facilitated by two wonderful lecturers. It was an open session. We were, group participation, always share your stories, activities, just so much learning but it was in a nice way. It was just a wonderful, wonderful setting. And you got to know all your fellow participants, their stories too. And there's, I could talk about them and their goals, for a long time. I'm just so proud that I met these people. And it was wonderful, a wonderful experience.
I know that collaborating, connecting with other people in a similar position is empowering. Speaking about some of those topics and sessions, what specifically did you find the most valuable? Which topics and information did you find the most valuable from your perspective and your needs?
Stewardship. Okay. Stewardship. I knew what the word meant, but I didn't know the cause and effect. And we spent a whole day on stewardship. We did scenarios. We created our own kind of asking and, took it through the whole process. And that to me was just, and I put a lot of the stuff in practice coming back here. Just the simple thank you. Somebody giving you their hard-earned money to help you in your efforts that you're already committed to. You don't need to be convinced, but this person or organization, is supporting you, and you need to tell them how much it means to you. And that's, to me, what stewardship is. And I put it into practice, and it's amazing the response that you get from people. Everybody likes to say, get a thank you. And, they like to know, how they helped you, what's going to be the result of their assistance. And that's not a big ask. That's an easy ask. Thank you is just two words. So by far, stewardship is what I learned the most, among a lot of other things. But that was the simplest.
Two words, extremely powerful. I think it definitely is underutilized, and people don't realize, when you reach back out to say thank you, I bet some of the donors are expecting you to ask for more money, and you're like, no, I just want to thank you for what you've already done. And they're like, whoa, take a step back, and then to be able to tell them what that money is going towards. People give to see an impact, and that is really important, to be able to show them what it is that their money went to. So thank yous is something you implemented right away. What is something that you have intentionally saved for later that you learned from Fueling Dynamic Fundraising? Well,
you'll learn the whole, I guess, life of a nonprofit is, and I was naive to a lot of it. And this presentation, this seminar, this learning experience, it opened my eyes to a lot of them. The first day, they were dropping words and acronyms, and I had no clue what they were talking about. I'm looking around the room. I see people, shaking their head knowingly, and I was like, oh boy, am I in over my head, but you slowly learned it. But our first thing that I felt was most important was our case for support, or as we were told, it's your story. What is your nonprofit? Why are you there? What do you do? Who do you help? And I learned it's called your case for support. So I came back, and my park manager and I, she pretty much wrote 99.9% of it, and we worked through it, and I've utilized it continually. And then from that, what comes out of it, what comes out of your mission statement? We had one. Was it what we wanted? Found out that, you should change your mission statement as your organization changes and society changes. With that, then the vision statement, then your core values. And we actually are in probably 90% finished of redoing our whole strategic plan. And after that, everything starts dropping into place. Your marketing plan, your fundraising plan, all of that stuff. So we started with our case for support.
Wow. I mean, that's really powerful that just that one section catalyzed all of this evolution through your mission statement, vision, your strategic plan. And that's not easy work. I've helped develop a couple strategic plans and mission statements as you argue over or you debate over exact words. What do we want here? So
I think the term is argue. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So TPF has values that they call the 5 C's. They are caring, connecting, collaborating, contributing, and creating. And I want to talk about connecting and collaborating because you were in that cohort 4 with 40 plus organizations. Did you find that group dynamic and peer learning helpful? And then if so, how?
Extremely helpful. As a matter of fact, we're scheduled to meet on Monday as one of our first kind of, I don't want to say reunion, but kind of a check-in that the Patterson Foundation does. And I'm going to one scheduled on Monday afternoon to connect with, members of the 40 organizations and kind of see where we are, what we've done, what we've learned. Has it worked? Has it not worked? That kind of stuff. So it's not, to use the term, a one and done kind of thing. It's a, I hate to use it, but it's a lifelong commitment. It's a lifelong journey that we're on, and having other like-minded organizations, i.e. nonprofits, that I can pick up the phone and call somebody, and they will say, hey, we're going through our major campaign and this is a good idea. This didn't work. I've kept in touch with them and I will continue to. So the group setting was perfect because you learn from people's experience.
Absolutely. And I think the follow-up aspect of that is extremely important too, for you guys to be meeting again and to be able to discuss what has worked, what hasn't worked, and being able to continually learn from each other beyond just the session, the fueling dynamic fundraising, teaching session. So we've talked about a couple of the aspects of the principles and techniques of fundraising course. That you talked about donor stewardship already. We talked about case for support. I want to talk about the annual fund planning and implementation as well. Is there any points you could share to the benefit of other nonprofits listening from the annual fund planning and implementation section?
I think probably the best advice that was given, and we discussed it, was set an achievable goal for fundraising. If you're going too high and you don't meet it, you've got to deal with the disappointments. If you go too low and you make it, then you're getting false information too. So do your research, set an achievable goal. I think that's probably the best advice I took from that. And it's not an easy, that's definitely not easy. You've got to take in all the factors, where this funding is going to be coming from and how you sell it. But that achievable goal is something that I've hung my hat on, continually.
Mm-hmm. Is that something that was developed rapidly after the sessions, or was it something that you had to take to the board, you guys discussed for a little bit? Like, how long did it take to pick that number and then develop this plan and implement the plan?
It takes time because it's a changing, lack of a better word, it's a changing target. You've got to see what needs you're trying to fulfill for your organization, what those resources are. Are you going to go for government funding, foundation funding, individual funding, which are all part of the whole fundraising process. And each of those are totally different mechanisms to achieve those goals. So I guess kind of an answer to your question, it's a very slow process, but do your research. And at the end, if you're successful, it makes it worthwhile. So again, it's been said before, just set yourself up for success.
So the Patterson Foundation works with people, businesses, nonprofits, government, and the media to catalyze efforts towards shared aspirations through 5 key actions: connecting, learning, sharing, evolving, and strengthening. And now I want to talk about evolving. You've talked about it already a little bit. You felt a certain way about fundraising before going into fueling dynamic fundraising. How did your confidence grow around fundraising after the program?
Well, as I alluded to, that fundraising was a scary word. I was terrified. You think when we jokingly, I can remember one of the facilitators saying, fundraising, you got money, give it to me. No, that's not how it works. You might think as simple as that, like give me your lunch money. It doesn't work that way. It's a process, and I did not know what that process was. So did I learn? Yes. Do I have confidence now? Yes. Have I learned everything? No, not even close, because each situation, each individual, each organization is different. You have to tailor what your ask is. It truly is, finding the right questions or the right giving. And that's why there's a big event of giving here in the areas across the U.S. where it's called the Giving Challenge. And that's coming up this year. And it truly is. It's a challenge. You just don't say, hey, give me your money. You have to sell yourself. And it comes back to everything we've talked about, your case for support, your mission statement, your vision, your core values. All of that is, you are kind of selling yourself. And once I learned that, it wasn't as daunting as I thought it was. It's, and I think probably the one takeaway that I guess it's my personality is you might ask somebody, like I might come to you and say, I really think you would like to support our organization. And I tell you why and everything. And you say, no, it's just not what I'm into. You can't dwell on that. You need to keep moving on. You're not everybody in the world isn't like everybody in the world. It's a tragedy, but it's the way it is. So you need to find your niches and go for them and sell yourself. And it all falls into place.
We've already discussed you taking on this role of executive director within the past 8 months full time, not being interim. How did being the executive director as well impact the way that you approach this course as opposed to just being board chair?
Being at the time, the interim CEO of the organization, I was in charge of day-to-day responsibilities. And I think that what I took away of, not being melodramatic, but I had sleepless nights. Because if we don't have the funding to keep our doors open and our lights on and the air conditioning running, it impacts lives. I have employees that work for me. They're giving their time, their efforts, their intelligence, their passion. And yeah, that bothered me, and I took that responsibility very non-lightly. And that kind of, helped me in my goal. My goal was to make sure this organization moves forward. We're a nonprofit. It's money in, money out. At the end of the year, you're happy and, you have a cut of cake. And, we're not here to keep stockholders happy. We're here to keep what a nonprofit does, keep the community, serve the community of whatever your goals are and help them and enable them and bring them in. And in our case, as I've said, we teach, we have recreation, and we do conservation efforts. So it's important to keep those goals right in front of you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the general public severely underestimates how stressful it can be to be an executive director, to keep those lights on and keep the family supported who you do employ, because that's no joke. It's like every other business out there. I do want to start winding this interview down here with the last question. What is a cookie from your jar or a piece of advice that you'd offer somebody else who's thinking about fueling dynamic fundraising or just walking a similar path as you?
Can I tell you a quick story?
Go for it.
As I've explained, there's so much information that is offered here, and I'm trying to soak it up as much as I could. And it was lunch on Thursday. We started Tuesday. It was a 4-day, 8 hours plus, together. And it was Thursday at lunch, and you moved and you sat with different people. So you got to know the different organizations. I was lucky enough to be sitting with a wonderful young lady with the Child Protection Center out of Sarasota. And she's their capital campaign manager. Her name's Elizabeth. Hi, Elizabeth. And we were just chatting, and I guess she kind of caught on my, body language, whatever, and said, "You seem a little confused, down, whatever." And I said, sometimes there's just so much thrown at me, and I'm used to not knowing. I kind of like to be in control of what's in front of me. And I felt like I was in quicksand. And, I'm like, am I getting it all? Am I missing something? And she looked at me and she gave me really good advice. And she said, take that first step. You're here and you're going to take that first step towards success. And I really, really appreciate it. But kind of the epilogue to that story, we went on, talked about other things, her campaign, and I really appreciate it. She's a very intelligent young lady. And we started our afternoon session, and our facilitator, Eric, comes up. He goes, before I start talking, and this guy's a great talker. He's amazing. He said, I just want to share that some of you may feel like you're sinking in quicksand. And we hadn't, given him anything like this. And naturally, Elizabeth and I cracked up. And he's like, we were sitting up front, and he's like, "Whoa, Dave, Elizabeth, what's going on?" So she told the story of what I just shared with you. And he goes, "Can I use that?" Because that was the way he was. And I I thank you for letting me share the story. I think it's important that if you choose to do this, or you get the opportunity to take this wonderful course, take that first step. Take that first step to success. You won't regret it. You definitely will not regret it.
Well, I bet it can feel like being in quicksand or drinking from a fire hose, and you show up on Tuesday and by Thursday you're like, whoa, what's been going on? Dave, thank you so much for joining me today. Thank you for your dedication to our community and using your time at Fueling Dynamic Fundraising valuably. We really appreciate it, and I really appreciate your time today.
Well, I appreciate you getting to meet you, and please, again, a shout out to the Patterson group. They are just, what a wonderful foundation. Thank you to them, and thank you to you. My pleasure.
Thank you for listening to the Nonprofit Thriveability Podcast by Beyond the Blog. For more information, please visit thepattersonfoundation.org/beyondtheblog.